Thank you, Martin, and good afternoon, everyone. And I've got two thanks to give first. Thanks first to MINEX for giving me the opportunity to talk about what FAME's been doing on lithium. And also thank you to the audience here, the core audience that's managed to survive till the end. And I realise this is the last session before drinks, so I'll try and be as quick as possible and have a rapid run through of what FAME has been doing to look at how Europe can help fill the gap in its lithium needs, and also then by default using those technologies and the methodologies that FAME's developed, how those can be used in the rest of Eurasia where there might be lithium deposits as well. Also, although this talk is about very much Western Europe processing of lithium, it's very much applicable to the rest of the world and certainly Eurasia. Yes, lithium demand. If we look at lithium, lithium is very much one of the metals which is very much in the news at the moment and has a very bright future. And there's a quote there, a recent quote, saying that the demand for lithium based on lithium carbonate equivalent is expected to reach 800,000 tonnes per annum by 2027. And that's quite a phenomenal increase because the current market for lithium carbonate is about 180,000 tonnes. So we see a huge rise in demand for lithium over the next few years. And although lithium is used in a number of sectors and is a key ingredient in a number of industrial processes, it's really the battery growth which is fueling that increase in demand. If we think about that, then the lithium demand is increasing, and look at where lithium comes from at the moment. It's really dominated by two players, Chile and Australia. Chile and Australia between them account for about 80% of the world's current lithium production. And those are of course from two main sources, hard rock minerals and brines. And although I'm going to be talking predominantly about lithium production within Europe from hard rock minerals, there is also a potential within Europe for lithium production from brines as well. So with the increasing demand, lithium being a vital component of batteries, and if the expected growth in electric vehicles occurs, there's a great question mark against where that lithium is going to come from, especially for the European car producers. Say electric car production is really driving demand, no pun intended there, but if you look at any of the figures, it shows that the amount of lithium that's required growing almost exponentially over the next few years, and that's really down to the increase in demand for electric vehicles. And so whilst many people will tell you that there are alternatives to lithium and that for batteries there will be other metals which are just as important, and certainly even in the lithium ion battery, cobalt, nickel, copper by tonnage are more important than lithium. But over the short to mid-term, lithium has a great future, and a future certainly over the next 5 to 10 years where there's probably going to be a lag behind production and demand. And so every single source of lithium that there is being looked at, and certainly investors are very interested in at the moment for that reason. If we look at the European situation, we've heard about the major deposit in Serbia, the Jeddah deposit, but there are a number of other deposits at different degrees of development within Europe, and there's a number there. Given I'm not claiming that that's an exhaustive list. It's certainly not comprehensive, but it covers most of the main lithium potential resources, and very little lithium being produced within Europe at the moment. Current production within Europe is almost tiny. On that list there are three potential lithium producers: European Metals, Sinovet in the Czech Republic, Keliber, which is Finland, and Felmica in Portugal. Those are three deposits which I'll just draw your attention to, and I'll come back to those later, because all those three deposits are within the in the FAME project. I'd said that I'm going to be talking about lithium from hard rock. There's also the potential within Europe for lithium from brines as well. Now, this is something which a few months ago I was rather disbelieving of, and considered, if you'd have said 2 years ago to me that you could potentially produce lithium from brines in Cornwall, I would have said you must be joking, there's no chance. But if you look at the historic data, Wheel Jane, 202 ppm lithium in the ingress water into Wheel Jane mine. 202 ppm lithium is about the same kind of concentration lithium as some of the Chilean lithium brine producers. These waters are associated with the granites. They're hot waters. They have certain advantages over some of the other brines that are being used and utilised in the world. Certainly the magnesium to lithium ratio and the potassium to lithium ratios make them very attractive. Combined with a temperature of 40 degrees C, there's the potential for that kind of deposit, that kind of brine solution to produce lithium economically. It's been looked at in Cornwall, lithium, Cornish lithium. There is also the potential, any other granitic belt within Europe, which has got similar magmatic waters associated with it, has the potential for this kind of lithium brine. It's been a very undervalued, investigated resource, and potentially in the future could become quite an important resource within Europe for lithium. So I say I don't want to dismiss lithium from brine solutions. I want to now tell you a little bit about what's happening within FAME. FAME is a Horizon 2020 project, 7.4 million euros research and innovation project, commenced in January 2015, 4-year project looking at flexible and mobile economic processing. Concentrates on 3 ore types: pegmatites, skarns and grisons. Why those 3 ore types? Because they're relatively abundant within Europe, and they contain a significant number of the critical raw materials, which we've heard a little bit about this morning. Certainly within those ore types, within the European context, tin, tungsten, indium, and although I know lithium is not one of the critical raw materials, although at the next round it could well become a critical raw material, lithium associated with those deposits as well. So FAME is about the processing and developing of innovative, flexible and mobile processing flow sheets to be able to recover metals and products from these ore types. And it's based on research utilising 6 reference ores. These reference ores are shown on there. Keliber up in Finland is a pegmatite. It's a lithium pegmatite containing spodumene. Sinovet in the Czech Republic is a grison rather than a pegmatite, but the tailings from that deposit, which was worked extensively, certainly in the Soviet era, the tailings contain a significant amount of lithium mica, zinwaldite, and the tailings themselves are a resource for lithium, let alone the ore which left and remaining at Sinovet. Tellerhauser across the border in eastern Germany is really a tin tungsten deposit, and then we have two deposits in Portugal, Tabuaço, which is a skarn, and Gonzalo, which is a pegmatite. And again, Gonzalo has appreciable lithium mica content. In this case, the lithium mica is lepidolite that's in there. And so 3 of the 6 reference ores that FAME is carrying out research on and mineral processing research are significant lithium resources. A major part of the FAME effort has been looking at how these deposits can be worked and a cost-effective process flow sheet, and the lithium processing from hard rock minerals will form one of the major parts of the deliverables, final deliverables for the FAME project. That photograph there is the Calibre ore, and you have 2 varieties of spodumene in there, and significant effort has gone into looking at how you can A, characterise this material in the first place, and B, what sensible, innovative processing options you can come up with to win the valuable minerals from that pegmatite. We concentrate for a moment on Calibre. Calibre has been doing a lot of work over the years, especially with GTK, who are also one of the FAME partner companies, and has developed a flow sheet. I'd love to say the flow sheet was developed through FAME. The flow sheet was really confirmed through FAME. It was developed by GTK in the years leading up to FAME, producing initially a spodumene concentrate and then going on to the chemical processing. And this highlights, that slide there highlights the difficulties and the challenges associated with lithium production from hard rock minerals. If you produce the concentrate, you're probably going to upgrade to a lithium content of around somewhere between 5 and 8%, because that's what the lithium content of that mineral is. If you have 100% recovery, you'll get up to 8% lithium in your concentrate. And of course, to get to an economically attractive lithium compound, you're probably talking about lithium carbonate, and so you're required to have some other form of chemical processing to take that 8% concentrate up to a workable lithium compound which can be used in battery manufacture. And it's because of the that association of mineral processing, mineral beneficiation, plus the chemical processing, the extractive metallurgy, and the two have to occur side by side and probably at the same site if you want to utilise a lithium resource from a hard rock mineral source. So that process flow sheet there for Calibre really does explain why, in general, lithium from hard rock minerals has not been that well practiced in Europe, and why the processing is sufficiently complex that a significant research effort is required before you can get a workable process flow sheet and an economically viable product. Again, just if we look at Calibre, Calibre probably is the European company which is closest to production of lithium. It's, if all being well, it should go into production, mine production, in 2019. And by mine production, that's mining, mineral beneficiation to a spodumene concentrate, and then chemical processing to lithium carbonate. And that should ramp up to 9,000 tonnes per annum of lithium carbonate, which is a significant amount of lithium carbonate in the current market. It has the potential to produce even more, but certainly at 9,000 tonnes per lithium carbonate, you're probably talking about somewhere between 5–7% of the current lithium market. Calibre believe they have the potential to capture up to 10% of that lithium market, and certainly be a significant player within Europe, and certainly be the first significant lithium producer within Europe. What has FAME been doing? FAME test work has been carried out by a number of the FAME partners, especially LNEG in Portugal, the Portuguese Geological Survey, BRGM in France, University of Lorraine in France has been developing some flotation devices, some novel flotation equipment, GTK in Finland, and the mineral processing labs at Wardell Armstrong in Cornwall have all been active in looking at the processing. One of the things which stands out with processing these lithium ores from hard rock minerals, you need to do some form of pre-concentration. Some form of pre-concentration is very beneficial to the process. If you can remove an amount of waste material initially and not put that through the subsequent processing circuit, there's a great advantage in that. FAME has been looking at especially the use of optical sorters, using colour differences between the minerals to be able to reject barren material, and had quite some success looking at the pre-concentration there of lepidolite from the Gonzalo deposit based on the colour differences between the minerals. Also, if we look at Calibre and the spodumene minerals, we've had quite some success with heavy media separation, being able to reject the spodumene-free material. So pre-concentration is an absolutely essential stage in the processing. We've also been looking at flotation. Now, flotation of oxide minerals, as I know some people in this audience know far better than I do, is far more difficult than the flotation of sulfide ores. And to get good recoveries and effective separation of the oxide minerals, you have to have some quite detailed investigations. You also have to probably develop some new and enhanced products for the recovery and the flotation of those minerals. We've been quite successful again within FAME. It's work based at GTK and University of Lorraine in producing some novel flotation reagents and some novel flotation equipment to help with the production of these lithium concentrates. Also at Sinovetch in particular, we had quite some success with looking at magnetic separation for the removal of and recovery of Zinnwaldite from those Sinovetch tailings, and quite some success with that. The work that FAME is doing at the moment is looking at the chemical processing, and especially within FAME we'll be looking at acid roast conditions up to 200 degrees C using sulfuric acid for the second stage of lithium processing, the chemical processing, prior to the formation of the lithium carbonate step. So that is very much what FAME will be doing over the next few months, looking at the chemical process options. What is required to be competitive? You've got to be able to increase recovery. You've got to be able to recover nigh on 100% of the lithium that's in the ore. Anything that you can do to decrease costs obviously makes it more competitive, but especially looking at what other byproducts are there and recovery of byproducts. And it's quite often the recovery of the byproducts in association with the recovery of the lithium concentrate that makes the process overall economically viable. And some of those byproducts are listed on the right-hand side there. Certainly we've had quite some success with looking at the niobium and tantalum from the Calibre ore, but again that will be very much determined on a deposit by deposit, mineralogy by mineralogy case, what byproducts you can get. But certainly seeking to maximise the recovery of byproducts is almost an essential step to have economically viable processing. What is FAME about to do? We're about to do some, we've carried out a number of bench scale tests. We're about to do some pilot scale tests of flotation of, from the Consalo pegmatite deposit, flotation of lithium micas. This will be carried out on site with fell mica. The tests are planned for early next year, and we hope to be able to demonstrate not only is it technically viable, but it's economically viable, economically feasible to do that. So in summary, what can FAME do, and what has FAME achieved in increasing the ability of the potential lithium resource within Europe and the ability to process lithium and treat lithium from hard rock minerals in Europe and outside Europe. Calibre is on schedule to become the first European lithium, or the first major European lithium producer in 2019. I'd like to think that in a small part, FAME has assisted and facilitated that, although I must say that Calibre was working long before FAME started on that processing route. The mica flotation will be tested at pilot scale. We will be processing a few hundreds of tons of Consalo ore, and we hope to be able to demonstrate the viability of that process. We also, certainly with Calibre and with the other ores as well, we've certainly been able to demonstrate that there are other byproducts which can be recovered and taken in conjunction with recovering the lithium. Those deposits can be worked economically viably to produce lithium. And so FAME will have contributed, we think, significantly to the valorisation of European lithium ores. The processes and the technologies which will have been developed within FAME will be applicable to lithium, generically applicable to lithium deposits worldwide. And certainly the lithium occurrences we've been hearing of during today's proceedings in many of the Balkan countries, in the Central Asian republics, these are the kind of technologies and the kind of processing route that we will be following, or can be followed, to produce lithium from a domestic source. And as we've seen, that lithium is in increasing importance if the take-up of electric vehicles is to be believed, and there's no indication that it's not. The amount of lithium which will be required, just as the amount of cobalt, the amount of nickel, the amount of copper, but the amount of lithium, there will be a gap for certainly the short term between supply and demand. And by applying these technologies, that gap can be narrowed, and some of the lithium production can come from domestic sources. I'd just like to say at the end there, that was after a successful meeting in Brussels of the FAME project. So as we like to say in the FAME project, cheers, and thank you very much indeed.